Welcome back to the channel. I hope you have a fantastic weekend wherever you are around this beautiful planet of ours. Today, let's look at the macro view on Bitcoin, looking at this major signal that comes in at every cycle, bottom low in Bitcoin and obviously crypto as well. And you can basically relate this to every other asset class in the world. So you can use this across any particular market. Now, it seems like it's too good to be true. It's one of those crystal ball type of signals, but it really is not. It's something that's been around in the market for decades upon decades upon decades, and it allows us to see what the smart money is doing compared to what the retail or so-called dumb money is doing. So let's dive into that in a macro look at the market, as of course the weekend brings us almost nothing. There's no extreme cases of urgent videos on the weekends these days because the market literally doesn't move. So let's take it a step back, look at the macro views here so we can set up and just avoid all of that FOMO and the BS around huge alert warning titles, at least for now. We need to look at those titles in the future. Of course, guys, like, subscribe, bell notification icon, or look at some of the data, the analytics of the channel in just a sec as well, because this all sort of relates into the macro, and we can see how many people are subscribing, who are hitting that bell, and men versus female on the channel, all that sort of stuff. It's really interesting statistics. All right, so first things first, let's take a look at the Bitcoin chart here. This is the BNC, the Brave New Coin BLX. Most amount of data here, it collates all of it. We need this because we want to look at, surprise, surprise, the volume here. And so at the bottoms of the market, we tend to see very high volume. Now, it can be around the bottoms of the market or basically almost dead on the bottom of the market. So it happens every single time. So that's the main thing here. We need to see it happen every single time. And as I said, this happens in the stock market, major blue chips, anything that's trading, it generally happens around the bottoms. Now, you can see this signature at the tops of markets as well, but sometimes it's not as clearly defined as what we saw going through the bull market of 2021 for Bitcoin. And you can see the top just start to round over, but there are other signals that of course we look for at that period. But coming back to the lows, we just take a look at each of the cycle lows. And I also want to look at the timing going into the 4-year cycle, which I put a video out in February of 2022, looking at this 4-year cycle timing. Things are coming to fruition, yada, yada. You've heard me say that many times before, and the timing is almost there. Going back to the volume lows, here is one of the major lows. It wasn't the cycle bottom low, but it is a major low. So it's also important to have a look at. And of course, the data back at the beginning of Bitcoin 2011, we just started getting data in 2010 from when it was trading at a few cents up to a few bucks. So this is important to have a look at, and it's not complete because of course Bitcoin was around since 2009, but we just don't have that data there. But anyway, the low here, the volume on a monthly chart, looking at the macro here, much higher than any other volume that we saw. And of course you could say, well, it's just starting to trade. Well, we're not going to see all of the volume because this is just a new market. But, take a step back and just say, well, it was a significant low. The market did, in fact, drop quite a bit from that peak to the bottom, 94%. And so that was still some of the highest volume, even if you want to compare it to the last 3 to 6 months prior to that low. So we had pretty good volume drop there. The next volume drop was 2014 and 2015. So you can see here, October 2014 had a very solid volume come into the market. And so then you saw it bounce and then reverse into that final low. So this is really cool to have a look at because maybe the October low that we've seen on the market isn't the final low. I'm always open to being wrong. And I guess if you want to progress as a trader or investor, you got to stop looking at things as being right and wrong because it screws up your psyche if you're trying to make money in the market. Don't worry about what everyone else is saying or calling or saying to your face or not, or getting on the keyboard. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you make your money, goes into your bank account, and you know how much there is and what you can do with it. So even if I am wrong and October isn't the low, what we saw at the previous cycle is another 40% drop. And we'll have a look at that in today's figures. If we got a 40% drop from the current low, where would that sit us? And look, that's 1 to 3 months away into that January bottom. So this is all sort of falling into that 4-year cycle as well. Now, I do want to make a quick mention to what we're looking at here today with the cycle bottom lows in terms of volume. This was also a video done in a very similar fashion on Michael's channel. So I'll leave a link to this in the video description. Check this out afterwards. Gave me the idea to go through it and then relate it to the 4-year cycle as well. So we can look at timing along with what happens at every Bitcoin cycle low. Whereas in this video, Michael's looking at the volume profile here. So back to BTC, just want to give a shout out to Michael's channel there for bringing this one up as well. We got the volume low, and the volume is extra high here on January, or in January of 2015. You can see it was the highest volume that had ever occurred in Bitcoin. And of course, more and more people are beginning to trade Bitcoin. Therefore, yes, maybe we're going to see high volume. However, if you just compare it to the previous few months where there was still very high volume, it was the highest volume. And then you continue to flow through into the accumulation period. This was another significant low, and on other exchanges, the August low of 2015 was lower than the January low, maybe just slightly, but it was a very significant low at that point. And at least on the BLX, it had significant volume, not as much as here. It was a higher low, but it also shows that there was still more buying happening. But what can happen here is that you get the final low come in, the bounce, and then the supply. Of course, we all know for Bitcoin for having 21 million supply, and maybe there was only 13 million at this point in time back in 2015. That's beside the point. The point being is that the supply out on the market that's on the exchanges that is being traded is basically drying up. And so you want to see that sort of volume profile happen in terms of the volume dropping as you start to get towards that breakout. And here is the breakout in late 2015 into 2016, where the bull market started to pick up a little more speed. So that's really like simple supply demand stuff. If the supply dries up and the demand remains the same, then the price is still going to go up. And if the demand increases, it goes up faster. So it's literally just looking at the supply demand side of things here, which is why it's okay for the volume to drop off compared to the previous low, because a lot of supply was coming in and then a lot of demand was coming in as well to hold up that price. And so we saw it 2015, saw it again at the low here. You can see this was still higher than the June bars and the market was heading up, just a little lower than the July peak here. Head a little forward into the market. Let's look for the next couple of lows. I want to bring these two up after we look at the next bottom. So we can see the bottom here in December. We got the breakout in November. Then December was that final low for the 2018 cycle. High volume. Of course, we needed the breakdown volume. It was basically the capitulation. Everyone getting rid of the rest of their Bitcoin because they thought it was going to 1,000 or 1,300. They were literal figures being thrown around at that time by basically people who were big in the YouTube crypto space, crypto YouTube space back at that time, who aren't so big now. You may have remembered some of those names calling for 1,300 BTC, and it didn't happen. But nonetheless, that was the low, high volume, got the breakdown low as well. Now, just coming back to these two particular bars here. This one is January of 2017 and March 2017. These ones had high volume, but the market was not ready to capitulate. So it's important to note that you can get the high volume on particular down bars. In this case, we're looking at candles, but throw your bars on, which I prefer. Let's bring the color back into our lives. Basically, you got the high volume, so the smart money is still buying up into the bull market, and you got it once again right here as the market was basically breaking through the previous old all-time high. It got a rejection, high volume, kept trying, tried again in March, high volume, and then you got the high volume breakout right here. So that's the high volume breakout, market's ready to go, and that was basically the last of the smart money buying up. And then through this period here, there's probably a fair bit of smart money trading going on because you got a bit more high volume here and the market's still heading up. But eventually you get the high volume at the peaks and market rolls over from that point. So we're just looking at what happens every single cycle low. So far we're seeing the volume pick up very significantly. We can see that in the C19, the pandemic that went on in 2020 into 2021. We also got a massive pickup in volume compared to what we had seen over the last year and a half, 2 years as well. And the next bottom we had in May. So it wasn't the cycle bottom, but it was a significant low. If you guys remember May and June in 2021, very, very significant time in the market. Very high volume came in. We had the potentially smart money buying up and then basically distributing into that top for that one last trade. We could say that because you had high volume and the market basically held up right at that point around $29,000, $30,000. So again, high volume. That leads us to today and back in June as well. So we did have the high volume. We had the breakdown in May, again, high volume. We had the June low, high volume. And what we've currently seen in September, we also have significant volume. Now, this is all leading towards a low, and it's something I've been talking about here for some time. You guys are pretty much seeing that yourself, that we are trending around the lows. However, let's have a look at what the risk is to the downside, and we'll use the 2014-15 bear market and accumulation as an example. So we got the October low into the January low, and it doesn't look big here, obviously, and even if I take log off, it'll look like nothing. But zooming into that time, it obviously was very emotional, especially when you could see a potential loss from the current low of that time, October, to the all-time cycle low of the 2014-15 bear market. So it was another 43%. Now, it's probably not likely that you're going to sell the exact bottom and then sell the exact bottom again. However, there's probably more chance of people selling bottoms than buying tops. You know, we've all done it before. But what you could see that happened over the following 8 months is we bounced and we went sideways from that point. So if we're looking at a drop to where the close was, because the market never went lower, didn't close lower than that January close. It's about a 24% drop. So it's not that bad. A 24% drop in cryptocurrency, we've seen it before. Sometimes it's just another Tuesday or Wednesday, but at the lows, you can expect pretty big moves. So we have a couple of figures in mind here, about a 40% and about a 20 to 25% drop. So where would that sit us if this wasn't the low in June, or it wasn't the low in October, if you're looking at the futures market, because the futures market for Bitcoin, the low actually has, the current low occurred in October. All right. So yes, we do have a low in June, but we do have a major low in October for the futures market. So where would that put it just in terms of a price here? Let's use the June low that we have here for the 24-hour market and just drop around 40% from the current price. Brings us down to about 10 and a half, go down to that 42%, brings you out at around 10K, which are the bottoms of the market before it took off into that final peaks in 2021. So it has some good price support and some clusters coming in. Basically, you got some confluence there on price that you could see the market hold up at if it was to be something extreme like a 40% drop. Now, going back to about a 20 to 24% drop that we saw on the previous one, well, that would bring it out to the tops here at about $13,000. So when I say tops, I mean the previous tops after that 2019 bull market. And so that would be a 24% drop from the low of June, where the market might just sort of churn around between that 13 and 17 or 18K. Now, I'm still of the opinion of my previous videos looking at the S&P as being a potential low, significant low, very significant low for that October date that we saw last week, the low come in. Let's see what happens tonight. By the time I put this video out, who knows, maybe we've seen a lower low price. But basically, the main thing that I've been looking at for months and months and months, going back to the 4-year cycle that we put out in February of 2022. So this is now going on, we're in October, 8 months of a forecast. This is the period that I'm looking for a low. And if you've been following long enough, which I think you should, obviously like and subscribe, then you'll know that I'm mostly focused on the timing, not time in, but timing of the cycles, because that's the best analysis that we have of the market to give us an idea of a rough gauge on price. Now, I know a lot of people, they look at price first and they say, well, what price will Bitcoin be at the end of this cycle? Honestly, I don't know what the price is going to be, but what history has shown us over hundreds of years, if not thousands of years of cycles that we have data for, is that we can get a very rough gauge and pretty good idea of where these cycles will turn. We know every year summer turns at a particular time. You know, for us here, we have the summer solstice in December. You guys have your winter solstice in the Northern Hemisphere. And you know when autumn's going to be. You know when winter, spring, etc. You know when your birthday is going to be. You know when the anniversaries are going to be. All these sorts of things in everything in life have cycles. So we have a much better idea when it comes to timing. But a lot of people still don't see that in the market. And so if we just go towards this timing, which I think is pretty much around this period, October, Q4, November, December, maybe even into January, like we talked about in that video back here in February of 2022, it looks a little bit more dramatic if I take it off log, it's all the way back here. Then we are basically around these levels, and should we get another flash capitulation out of the market into these lower prices, which we have now planned for at that 10 or 11 or 14 or 15K, then, and it comes into alignment with that time, then for me, in my analysis, I can be pretty well assured that they're going to be some of the best prices that I can pick up Bitcoin at, and potentially the S&Ps and other traditional markets at that time, the best prices I can get. And then I wait for the cycle to turn again as, let me get my seasons right here, as spring follows winter, right? And then we follow into summer. All right, I've got those seasons right. And that's what happens in the market as well. It's always the same thing time and time again. And we have pretty good cycle counts to let us know when that is happening. That was a look at the signal that flashes at every single low. Now I'm going to put the 4-year cycle timing update in a separate video. It's recorded. You'll get it within 24 hours, but I just wanted to break this video up as it's already long enough. So the next video is going to be a little bit shorter, but you're going to get all of that 4-year cycle timing update. So make sure you are subscribe to the channel, bell notification icon, and I've also got the channel statistics coming up in that next video. So stay tuned for that. Heaps coming up in this boring as bear market. I'll see you guys at the next video. Don't forget to check out the exclusive Bybit and BitGet links down below if you want to be part of our exclusive trading strategy with TIA Crypto. Must use those links down below. If you're with another link, you can always start a new account using those links down below. Thanks once again, guys. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Stay tuned for the 4-year cycle update along with my channel analytics. See you at the next one. Peace out.